I don't know. I don't see the little button yet.
You are recording.
Oh, I am. I didn't get it. But anyway, so thank you guys for coming on to the stroke education. As you guys can see, it's gonna be Carl, Christopher, Steve, and myself. So this is our faces and what we look like, just in case you guys forget. Okay, so yeah, welcome to the stroke education. So I just wanted to give you guys that, we all understand that somehow all of us have been affected by some kind of brain injury. And we have this great community that we all empathize each other and respect each other and just make sure that we share parts of our story, which is very vulnerable and about our life, but we also have a lot of limits into what we share and how we would like to share this information. Um, so, some it, but I also think that sharing our story is the best form of education. Obviously, not to ourselves, which I think is the most important, how we learn about ourselves time to time, but also for others, other members, other family members, but also for therapists, doctors that really do need to step their boundary and then like not just learn health wise from a book, but also from people like us ourselves. So thank you guys for joining. And thank you, Valerie, for recording. Okay, so facts about a stroke with just quick answers and that are all read from the cdc.gov. So there sometimes it's called a brain attack, but it happens two different ways. There's a ischemic, the stroke, when the blood supply of the brain is blocked. So it doesn't have to be specifically at the brain. It could also be like lower of the brain, which is a therm, I can't say these words right, but below the brain. And then there's also a hemorrhagic stroke. So the one when the blood vessels in the brain busts. So these are some of the good pictures that I saw that explains it. Um, so the stroke causes the brain tissues to die, which can lead to very like brain damage, a lot of disabilities, and even death. So it is one of the leading causes of death in the United States, and but it can be prevented. So there are a lot of risks that you can change, like making a lifestyle change, which decreases the blood pressure and a lot of other different things. So it can be changed by changing your lifestyle and also by maybe taking some medicine. Okay, so what are the risks about getting a stroke? So, really, some of the risks, which we hear about all of health, things that you can change and prevent. So, not getting enough exercise, smoking, drinking too much, and any unhealthy bad habits. So, we hear about this all the time and things like diabetes, high blood pressure, a bunch of different illnesses. So, we should definitely listen to our bodies and just take a step that can prevent a lot of stuff in our health. So, having no unhealthy bad habits. But really, it can also just happen. Kids can happen, um, and also people depending on age, sex, and ethnicity. So there's a lot of things that can happen that can occur a stroke. But really, we should definitely focus on doing the things we can do, which is changing and having a better health, um, better good health system. Okay, so we're going to hear this a lot about the signs and the symptoms of a stroke. So, the best way to remember it is the fast. So, face dropping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, and that is so important to take time and call 911. So those are the main symptoms that we hear about all the time. So if you go to a doctor, you see it on the wall, you Google stroke, this is the first thing that you're gonna see. But there's other symptoms like sudden weakness or numbness, any kind of confusion, trouble seeing either by one eye or both, trouble walking, and sudden severe headaches. So before I move on to the next step, you're going to be hearing about our stories of Carl, Christopher, Steve, and myself. Because again, I do think that one great ability that many people have, including very medical staff members, is to hear stories about what specifically happened to us and what it is to continue learning. So the first one up is Carl. So yeah, Carl, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. This is my stroke chronology. And what happened on Monday, October the 17th, I went to Preston Hospital for what turned out to be 2 small strokes. As I was getting ready to get discharged on Friday, I was ready to go home. Then it really hit me. I had an ischemic stroke. My blood pressure went down to 20. There were 8 doctors around me, and I knew nothing. They made a mistake, and to reverse some of the work they did, they used Novalox. Later in the day, I came to, and I was all hooked up in ICU. The day before, Kim and I sent invitations for an event that I got elected to. We were talking about what we were going to do, how to do it, and so forth, but I never got there. I also was supposed to do a test that day at UTA. They never saw it either. So the stroke affected the part of my brain that contains language. And at that time, I could only mumble. I could think about several things, but I could not form words. It turned out that the stroke knocked me out, just about everything, including math, typing, computer work, and basically every other skill. The only thing that I still had was reading. I could still read starting that day, but I could not tell anyone else what I was reading. That day, a TP came in the room and she said, "Are you ready to walk?" And I said, "Are you in the right room?" Like, how am I supposed to walk? Okay. But they would not take no for an answer. So I went 5 steps back and then back to the bed, and I was strapped up and the person to help me. Then later, about 4 hours later, another nurse came in and said, "Have you walked today?" I said, "Yes." So then they said, "Let's do it again." Okay. And so I went about 7, 8 steps and went back after that. And y'all, I think about this so much because, the hospitals and so forth really changed. Every time my mom and dad were in the hospital, all they did was sit there. I mean, they, lay down and watch TV and so forth. And that's not the way it is today. If you can walk and move, you're going to have to do that whether you want to or not. The only thing I can really tell you about that I did thinking about was good for me, and I looked forward for it, is morphine. And it's the greatest thing I've ever felt. And I can also see why it is so controlled suction, okay? Because it's very dangerous. Okay? So you see in the slide here, I was at the hospital for a whole month, And then I was got some progress in a little bit of everything. And then I was at Pate for and Alan for, that's not right, it's Anna for 6 months. And then this is a picture of my speech therapist. Her name is Erin, and she works still at Pate. And I see her every time we go to speak at Bind. So where I am now is I am 75% done with everything, but I'm not done with anything. And that's kind of where we are in just about everything I do. So I wanted to end with this song that I think you all will really like. The name of it is called Damaged. And these are, they're 17 and 15 girls, and they are pop country singers. And so this sound is called Damaged, But We Still Work. And I think that's a very meaningful song to me, because while we had a stroke and so forth, there's a lot of other things we can still do. And so what I did, I guess a couple of weeks ago, is I sent a donation under the name of Carrie and Kaylee for their group, which is called Wildfire. And that was to donate to Bind. So anyway, I wanted y'all to listen to this and see what you think.
Friday night, I don't seem right. Take one more look in the mirror. I'm not myself, but I can't tell how to fix what I'm feeling. And all I know is I don't really know anymore. I wanna go out, but I wanna stay home. I'm with my friends, but I'm still alone. I wanna feel love, but I don't love myself. And I feel so far from everybody else. Don't let them see me drowning in pressure. Trying to fit in, but it just makes it worse. Push the opinions out like they don't hurt. Yeah, we're all damaged, but we still work. We still work. We still work. We still work. Crowded room, I can't move, but it.
Sorry, guys. We are running a little low on time. So the link is posted on here. And I do definitely suggest that everyone does listen to it. It is really good lyrics, and it'll continue explaining why Carl chose this song. So I'm going to move on to the next person to be speaking, and it is going to be Steve. So thank you so much, Carl, for sharing your story and continuing to present and working on to your 75% done and 75% to continue. So go ahead, Steve. You're up next.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kezia. Good morning, everybody. This is my story. And often a stroke is mistaken for an event that takes place in the heart, but it happens in the brain when the blood flow is disrupted, either by blockage or bleeding, deprived for the oxygen it needs. That part of the brain starts to die. My story is similar but different. Everybody that's been through has a different story. It strikes out of nowhere, and I don't recall anything. You know what? I think I was thinking of my happiness too. Doesn't have a thing to say. or two. You cannot be that bored. My brother, before he passed, told me my nephew's wedding. I'm glad you are recovering from this, and you are very lucky. I'm glad you are able to make it here. And that's what after my second stroke. I say this to bring awareness to a condition that can be misconstrued as being drunk or aloof or anything that's happening at that time. This is a picture of me once my brother, and the other side was my family when we went to New Orleans. A quick and easy way to remember the most common signs of a stroke is that with an acronym FAST. It stands for face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, and time to call 911. However, I take two additional letters of the acronym B and E. D stands for balance and eyes. Since a loss of balance and the sudden change in vision can also signal a stroke. A severe headache is another warning that can be not overlooked. I remember talking to my wife while I was working and telling her I was having a headache all day that was not going away. Later on that evening was the worst episode that affected my ability to speak, write, and well as doing things like tying my shoes. I still have some hiccups, but I am getting better at normal activities. I can go on and on, but I will say those stories for another time.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Steve. So the next up, and I loved Steve's story, especially because he focused on the fast, and it could be those other symptoms, that we sometimes forget about or we don't hear about. For his example was a balance and eyes for vision. So thank you, Steve, for sharing your story, and I loved your family pictures. It's making us all connected a little bit more. So the next up is going to be Christopher. So Christopher, you're up. You're on mute, Christopher.
There. Okay. My story in 2007. I had a hemorrhagic stroke on the left side of my brain in the center of the parental, frontal, and temporal lobe. It caused by high blood pressure and stress. It paralyzed my whole right leg, my upper right extremities, and lost my short-term memory. I was in the ICU for 4 to 5 days, acute care rehab for 1 month, inpatient rehab for 2 months, and outpatient therapy for 5 months.
Sorry, can you see the end of it?
I think he's frozen.
Oh yeah, he did freeze. He did freeze. I don't know if he'll be able to come back. But are you back?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. I think we got cut off a little bit.
Okay. And if you go to the next slide.
Okay, yes.
Yes, yeah. This is a CT scan of my brain of where the stroke happened. The black part is where the damage is in my brain. And on the left side, it shows the side version. And then on the right image is the top version to where the stroke happened.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I did want to have you be a little bit towards the last story. This is just a great example of how all of us have had a different story, and Christopher himself, like, I find very courageous to be sharing the CT scan. That is a step that I'm not in yet. So this is exactly why everyone's life and journey is just at a different step, one by one. We've all had some kind of stroke, but not at the same place to be healed and going through it. All of us at different space at a different time. Time is the weirdest concept in my head now, but everyone is at a different time. So again, thank you guys for coming to Zoom and sticking with us. And thank you for hearing our different stories. Mine is the last step. I am definitely going to shorten it a little bit so that we can have some more time if you guys have any questions. So yeah, my story. So I was 28 years old living in Chicago, and I loved my life. I worked with dietitians and have working on outreach for people with diabetes. And I was already training for my third Chicago Marathon. That all happened in 2017, and my life just started changing. I began to feel like something was wrong with me. I was getting headaches, and somehow I thought it was probably because of my family. You know, my mom would always get headaches, but you know, I was 28 years old. I had never really had headaches, and now I just kept having them. And then the headaches turned into this terrible pain. I couldn't sleep on my bed. I kind of would just sit on a couch to try to fall asleep. I had this terrible back pain, my lungs and my chest hurt so much. It felt like I couldn't breathe if I even tried to sleep. Because of that, I started demanding a CT scan. I Googled it and I thought it was maybe something in my lungs. So that is what I asked for, a CT scan of my lungs. And I had to start taking medicine because I had blood clots. And they said it was tiny blood clots in my lungs, and I had 2. So it definitely lowered my positive kind of energy. I was really sad. I would really cry a lot. And then, but I ignored my headaches. I was like, well, this is what has my headaches. You know, I'm just going to ignore them. But in December 18th, 2017 is a day that my life like drastically changed. It was a Monday. Very similar to Steve. I don't remember things. So a lot of them are just gonna be little pieces. So yeah, I couldn't sleep for 2 days. I hadn't the day before, like Sunday night, I went to breakfast and spent the day with my dad. It was December 18th, and I had a flight to Texas the 19th. So I went with my dad on the 17th. We went shopping for Christmas. We did all of that, but I started throwing up and I could not stop. So the whole night, the Sunday night, I just threw up like the whole night. That Monday, I don't remember anything. I just remember that I went to work somehow. And I do remember going down the stairs and that I was like holding on to the handles because I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm gonna fall. And then I missed the bus because I lived in Chicago and don't need a car. So I missed the bus by like 2 minutes and maybe even by like a minute. I'm like, oh, what do I do? Wait for it for 5 more minutes, or do I just call an Uber? And I decided to call an Uber. The Uber driver, once he got to my apartment, which is like less than five miles away from my job, once he got to my apartment, he said that he called 911 because he said, and he told the ambulance that I just all of a sudden couldn't communicate to him, and I was just saying weird words. So I got called and was taken to the ER, and the ER said that I had a stroke that affected the left side of my brain. And then I was no longer able to speak correctly or walk or say my family's names. My mom lived in Texas, so she took a flight like as soon as possible to Chicago because she couldn't understand what is a stroke, what are seizures, like nothing, you know. This is something that families don't know what it is or what to do. So yeah, so a huge shortcut. I mean, a lot of us know a lot about this stuff, but 10 days after the stroke, I had received seizures, 4 seizures, and I was rushed into an immediate surgery because I had like swelling on my brain, which caused like I could have possibly died without any kind of form of blood going to my brain. So they took a big chunk of my cranium and put it on my belly, which hurt to laugh and tie my shoes and all that stuff. And I had to wear like a red helmet, which you guys saw in like the picture before this one. So because of the, like after the surgery, I was put into a coma to help my brain heal and rest. But that was like the big section of like how all of this happened. This is a very short story. If you guys want to hear it more, get the book. I read the whole story and it's like 6 pages, just letting you know. But anyway, shortcut is that I've had 6 surgeries. I spent 3 months in the hospital. And it's been like, I have like almost a full year of rehabilitation. I've had many seizures after the stroke, but thankfully I haven't had one for 15 months now. So I'm like super excited about that. So yeah, that was like the picture on here is like after my last surgery, like literally the last big surgery I needed. So that was like literally like 2 weeks after. And I was just so excited to walk 2 miles, like literally walk, you know, that's a big step for me. Like I've run 2 marathons, I've trained for 3. And then just simply being able to walk 2 miles is like a huge accomplishment for me. Sometimes it makes me feel sad. Like sometimes I wish I was back in my lifestyle, but, you know, I just continue to remind myself that this is a very long journey. And, you know, it took 28 years to reach those accomplishments. And then I was able to reset, you know, and it's happening and it's barely been 3 years. So I have to remind myself that everything that I do is a huge accomplishment. So this is my story. I'm gonna click it on to the next, which is gonna be like a little finish. We've been very fast, guys, because this was literally half an hour too. So I'm gonna click on to the next thing. And that's the reason that I put on our stories. That really was Christopher's idea, definitely not mine, you know. I just wanted to make sure that we remember everyone, even if you haven't had a stroke or, you know, fingers crossed, never do, and never have to live through that with family members. Just make sure that we have that ability to make healthy life habits and decisions. You know, we have the great opportunity for Bind as our form of community and resource that we can make very healthy life habits. We can, you know, every Mondays and Fridays go apply or attend the workout time. You know, on Fridays, come with us to take a walk. You know, just make very healthy life habits. You know, be happy. That's like so important. I wasn't happy for a while, you know, and I don't know why I had a stroke. I don't know, you know, but sometimes it just happens, but you know, it could be our happiness, our positivity, or, you know, our own guilt that can bring our own life down. And that so fast, you know, listen and remember Steve's story about fast, about his own symptoms, you know, how he was talking to his wife, telling him how he felt. You know, remember that. That's so important. Listen to your body. You know, you're the best advocate for yourself. So listen to your body. You know, don't ignore headaches. Don't ignore like things like that, and demand yourself. You know, like the doctors aren't the best people in the world. You are to yourself. You're the best people, and you have to demand strongly what to do. And then healing and recovery will be a journey. It is a huge journey. Like me sharing my story, there are days that I just start crying, limiting ourselves to sharing stuff like, that is crazy. Christopher saying his CT scan, like that is in self, like I can't do that yet. I haven't seen them. I don't want to. I don't have a lot of pictures. Sharing my pictures to you guys, that was already a challenge to myself. Like the first picture was my birthday when I turned 28. The middle picture is just like me wearing my helmet. And like the third picture is me being able to walk 2 miles, So it is a journey, it is a journey, and it's courageous to do so. And just remember that everyone will have a different path of recovery, and everyone will have a different level, like sometimes asking like, what were your symptoms, or what did you do? Asking every single person, you don't know if they're able to answer that just yet. And hopefully they will, pretty soon, but just not yet. But those are the main things I wanted to share in this stroke education. But I honestly want to especially thank like Christopher and Carl and Steve for taking that time to work with me and share their story and help me out with this stuff. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you guys, and specifically Christopher for telling that to my head, like messaging me and telling me, you got to do it this way. I'm like, okay, got it. And then of course you guys for staying on Zoom at 11, and especially on this very gloomy and rainy days. So thank you guys so much. And if you guys have any questions, any feedback for the next like 15 minutes, make sure to do so. So yeah, thank you guys.